Richard Harrison, affectionately known as the Old Man, was dreading his time in front of the camera. The ugly truth is finally surfacing. His wife is suing their son for the loss of $500,000. Was it really Rick Harrison who lied to his unconscious mother? Was the old man aware of the treachery before he passed away? You won't believe what happened to your favorite pawn shop family on TV today. On March 4, 1941, Rick Harrison Jr. came into this world in Danville, Virginia. He gained fame as the wise old man in Pawn Stars. When he was just a baby, his family uprooted and settled in Lexington, North Carolina. They were obviously a working-class family from the look of their modest 115 Peacock Avenue home. As a builder and welder, his father toiled away to provide for his family. Working hard was something Richard had to learn early on. He became a school bus driver at the age of 14, which is something that most teenagers wouldn't even consider. He would rise before the sun came up to collect the children and drive them to school. He would spend the night at his house without the bus and earn about $5 or $6 per week. Even though it wasn't much, his loved ones were grateful. School didn't really pique his interest. Although he started his high school career at Lexington, he dropped out as a junior. Getting a job seemed more important than completing school due to financial problems at home. At 17 years old, his life took a dramatic turn. Joanne Rue was someone he met at a barn dance. He would never be the same after that fateful night. Around the same time, he made a poor decision that might have been fatal. His car theft was apprehended. He was brought before a judge who offered him two options: serve his sentence in prison or enlist. Making a decision was easy. The United States of America welcomed him in October 1958. When it came to the U.S. Navy, one decision could change everything. He had intended to serve for 4 years, but events unfolded differently. 2 years into his service, he tied the knot with Joanne. Their first child, Sherry, was born not long after. She required costly medical treatment due to her Down syndrome, but she was able to get it. His tenure in the Navy was lengthened due to Richard's re-enlistment. During the subsequent 2 decades, he was employed by no less than 4 ships. He finally achieved the rank of first-class petty officer after years of hard work. Across the Pacific, he had to get work done. Prior to this, he was an ensign on the USS Twining and USS Orlo. Afterwards, he became the head of all air operations after joining Tactical Air Control Squadron 21. His longest tour was from 1971 to 1975, while serving on the USS Chuano. Throughout that period, he was decorated with multiple medals, including the Vietnam Service Medal and the Good Conduct Medal, and sent to Vietnam on multiple occasions. The Navy separated him from his family for extended periods despite his success. He neglected to spend quality time with his loved ones since he was away at sea for nearly half of his work week. He made a decision in 1979 while he was living with his 3 teenage sons. He served for 20 years before he left the military. In an effort to improve their lives, Richard Harrison and Joanne traveled to San Diego. They put in a lot of time and effort to launch a realty company and eventually opened their own office. At one point, everything seemed to be going swimmingly. Things went downhill after they had gotten going in the early 1980s when the economy crashed. A spike in mortgage rates to 18% wreaked havoc on the property market. The Harrisons believed that real estate could safeguard their future, so they invested heavily in it. In the end, they were out nearly $1 million. Even though it had broken them, Harrison refused to give up. He later reflected on his military service and how it instilled in him the values of perseverance and hard work. Even if it meant fleeing San Diego, he was certain they had to start over. In April 1981, they relocated to Sin City with a meager $5,000 remaining in their savings account. It was more of a desperate attempt than a hopeful one. Despite the fact that Las Vegas wasn't yet the bustling metropolis it would become, Harrison could still see its potential. In his mind, a fresh start was possible. Upon their arrival, he and his son Rick promptly established a modest second-hand store named Gold and Silver Coin Shop. Its 300 square feet were insufficient for even the most basic commercial operations. On Las Vegas Boulevard South, they attempted to attract customers in every way they could, but initially it was unsuccessful. Funds were difficult to come by. In order to provide for his family, Rick repossessed cars after hours and ran the shop during the day. Despite a rocky beginning, the Harrisons would not allow the business to fail. They were known for their expertise and honesty throughout the years. They outgrew the original store in 1986 and relocated to a larger location, but Rick and he had loftier ambitions. The process of obtaining a pawn license in Sin City was extremely difficult for a long time. The city's regulations were quite stringent, so the number of issues was limited. However, Rick listened intently. He kept tabs on the city's population growth and made frequent phone calls to city officials, anticipating that more licenses would be made available as the city expanded. In 1989, his persistence was rewarded. One of the most sought-after pawn licenses in Las Vegas was finally theirs after years of fighting for it. A mere 2 miles from the Strip, at 713 Las Vegas Boulevard South, they established Gold and Silver Pawn Shop the subsequent year. The timing and location were perfect. In 2015, the business was earning $700,000 in interest on loans of approximately $3 million. While business was booming, getting there wasn't exactly a picnic. The abundance of pawn shops in Las Vegas made it challenging to attract customers. Many people had a negative impression of the industry because they believed it was full of unscrupulous businesses. They had to gain people's trust, the Harrisons knew. For a long time, Rick had been interested in history and antiquities. Because of his knowledge, the store was better. Things that other people failed to notice were obvious to him. They weren't like other pawn shops. They dealt in more than just gold jewelry and electronics. Rather, they gained notoriety for accepting priceless artifacts and historical artifacts. Being trustworthy was equally crucial as having enough of things on hand. The Harrisons' reputation for fairness won over customers and earned their loyalty. By the turn of the millennium, the store had become a Las Vegas institution. Many gamblers would pawn their possessions in order to cover their losses and return home. Enthusiasts of unique items flooded the room. The kind of treasures kept inside were the only thing that interested some people. The store's already distinctive wares became even more so as time passed. You could trade samurai swords, Roman coins, and even the Super Bowl ring that Brock Williams wore while playing for the New England Patriots in 2001. The store had become an institution by the year 2010. Visitors and admirers flocked to the shop on a daily basis. Demand was so great that they couldn't stop expanding. A little over 15,000 square feet had been added to the store by October of that year. During 2003, an unusual incident occurred at the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop located in Las Vegas. The store was featured in an episode of Insomniac with Dave Attell, a late-night talk show. It was only a brief article about an unusual company to many. It was more than that, though, for Rick Harrison. For years, he had pleaded with television networks to consider airing a show about his pawn shop. People would be interested in the unique things that came in and the daily deals, he thought. However, those in control of the network held a different opinion. He had even been told that no one would watch four fat guys in a pawn shop. However, his performance on Insomniac proved them wrong. The showrunners at TV networks were intrigued and thought it might be a great concept. It turned out to be more than a pawn shop. It was a richly historical establishment teeming with fascinating artifacts and courageous individuals. Chapley, Rick's son Corey, Richard, the old man Harrison, Rick's dad, and the rest of the Harrison family were loads of fun. Everyone was very knowledgeable about rare items and tension was high. Everything fell into place in subsequent years, but by 2008, the concept had begun to take form. Much of the show would revolve around the history of the shop, family dynamics, and conversations. At first, that was its name. Despite their interest, the History Channel rejected the proposal due to its moniker. Pawn Stars was the new name, which was a clever pun. The premiere date was July 19, 2009. In only 10 weeks, it surpassed all other History Channel shows in terms of viewership. More people watched Jersey Shore than any other reality show in the nation. Pawn Stars' meteoric rise to fame altered the course of history at the gold and silver pawn shop. Roughly 70 individuals would tune in to the show daily. By October of 2010, that figure had skyrocketed to more than 1,000. Travelers from far and wide flocked to the store in the hopes of making a purchase or at least meeting the cast. Over 150 countries aired the show, and it was translated into 38 languages. As the old man, Richard Harrison's appearance was among the most recognizable on the program. On March 4, 1941, he entered this world in Danville, Virginia. Before opening his pawn shop, he served in the Navy for over 20 years. In the year 1989, he and Rick established the gold and silver pawn shop in Sin City. Even before the show, Richard had a reputation for being honest. At the young age of 38, he had already earned the nickname the Old Man for his grave demeanor. He won over the hearts of moviegoers. He had the intelligence to know when a deal was a bad one, and he was also tough. The show's comedic value stemmed from his frequent disagreements with Corey and Chumley. Despite his grouchy exterior, he had genuine concern for the company and its employees. Richard also had a great affinity for classic automobiles. Among the many that he flaunted on the show, a 1966 Imperial Crown was particularly noteworthy. His parents and sister-in-law celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary by giving him a restored version of the vehicle. A man who seldom showed emotion actually broke down in tears at this moment. Being on television was not all Richard Harrison had to offer. He was a grandfather, a husband, and a father. No matter how difficult things got, his family could always count on him to be there for them. After Richard wed Joanne Rue in 1960, she remained his faithful companion for nearly 60 years. Joanne came from a very close-knit family. Before becoming the head attorney for Philip Morris, her father served as a county judge. Joanne was born into affluence, but she had a privileged life with Richard nonetheless. Like many couples, they faced challenges that tested their relationship to its limits. Their daughter Sherry was born with Down syndrome, which was their first child. They loved their special needs child very much, but raising her was difficult. Her untimely death at the tender age of 6 has left an indelible mark on their hearts. Christopher, Keith, Joseph, Kent, and Rick were the other 3 children of Richard and Joanne. Because of the financial difficulties they were experiencing, they were forced to make some difficult decisions as life continued to throw them curveballs. Richard had enjoyed a secure career for over 20 years thanks to his service in the Navy. However, certainty waned once he departed from the service. In an effort to provide for her family, Joanne decided to get her real estate license. For as long as they would hire him, Richard worked. Despite their financial constraints, they persevered. Richard and Rick, his eldest son, decided to take a risk in the late 80s. Gold and Silver Pawn Shop first opened its virtual doors to the Las Vegas Strip in 1989. It was just a small family company at first. Despite its lack of ostentation, Richard had a firm foundation in doing what was right and working hard. He was an astute businessman who never shirked responsibility. This meant that there were no free lunches, no handouts, and no room for sloth. His meticulousness in the shop was rewarded, just as it had been in the Navy. Richard never softened his stance. He had a reputation for being honest long before he was referred to as the Old Man. Their feelings toward him deteriorated as time went on. People started calling him that at the young age of 38 due to his rough demeanor and traditionalist views. Truthfulness was important to him. Working hard, being responsible, and dealing with their own problems were all on them. He carried that mindset into the pawn shop, where he became famous for his skillful bargaining. If someone tried to pull a fast one in his shop, they would know it immediately because he had seen it all. Although Richard's strict side was known by those closest to him, he had another side as well. Being a father and grandpa meant the world to him, and he treasured his family. He and Rick were very close, working hand in hand. They expanded the company daily. Upon its 2009 debut, Pawn Stars was primarily focused on their friendship. Their mutual respect, wit, and occasional arguments were on full display for all to see. Richard served as an inspiration to his son, in addition to being a famous TV personality. Rick absorbed all of his business wisdom from him and carried it with him throughout his career. Richard also had a great affinity for classic automobiles. For 15 years, he patiently awaited the owner's sale of a 1966 Imperial Crown, which he had his heart set on. When the deal finally closed, it wasn't like any other business deal. On their 50th wedding anniversary, Rick and Corey, his son, surprised him with a fully repaired car after many years. For one of the rare occasions, Richard found himself speechless. For a man who was reserved most of the time, that moment demonstrated just how much his loved ones meant to him. The passing of Richard's middle son, Joseph Kent, added another tragic event to the lives of the Harrison family. No parent should ever have to go through the pain of losing a child, especially a second child. However, Richard remained unwavering as usual. Instead of crying, he kept his composure. Instead, he focused on the family he had and did everything he could to keep them close. Even though he appeared as sharp as ever on TV, things were becoming harder behind the scenes. It is difficult for Harrison to move, balance, and even speak due to Parkinson's disease, a brain disorder. He kept quiet about his illness at first, hoping no one would feel sorry for him or take extra care of him. He continued with his regular routine of attending work and filming episodes, as well as managing the pawn shop and keeping his family in line. And yet, Parkinson's disease keeps reappearing. Over time, he found it more and more difficult to conceal the appearance that the cancer had taken over him. Simple tasks became more challenging for him as he walked more slowly and experienced trembling hands. Because of the pain from the long days of shooting, his once loud voice became much quieter. So long as the cancer didn't define him, he persisted for as long as he could. Harrison had to leave Pawn Stars in 2017 due to his deteriorating health. He decided to stop because things became much worse after his stroke. The decision was not easy. His tenure at the shop spanned nearly 3 decades. In ways he could never have imagined, the show catapulted him to stardom. However, he found that his body simply couldn't manage the rigorous schedule. His absence raised health concerns among his legion of admirers, but few understood the extent of his pain. Even though he was sick, he continued to be involved with the business, offering advice to Rick and Corey and ensuring that the shop ran according to his specifications. Richard Harrison passed away at the age of 77 on June 25, 2018. With his loved ones by his side, he passed away quietly. The news of his death devastated his legion of fans. This sad news was shared by Rick Harrison in an Instagram post that read, "The old man lost his long battle with Parkinson's this morning. Love you, Dad." In addition to spending his final days with cherished family, Harrison had said, "See you on the other side." The Gold and Silver Pawn Shop confirmed this in a statement. "I got the answer immediately." In tribute to the man who had brought so much joy to their lives for nearly a decade, Pawn Stars fans reminisced and shared their favorite moments from the show on social media. As a token of their respect, people would leave notes, flowers, and other trinkets in his beloved shop chair. No one could deny that Harrison made an impression on people. He personified honesty, hard work, and traditional values. He was much more than a reality TV star. Though they were devastated, his loved ones were able to find solace in the support of their friends. Multiple messages were sent by Rick to his dad, in which he praised him as my hero and expressed gratitude to everyone who had helped. My grandpa taught me a lot, Corey Harrison remarked. He had spent over 15 years helping out his grandpa. In addition to being Corey's grandpa, he served as his best friend and teacher. Another individual who contributed was Austin Chumley Russell. The way Harrison could be simultaneously serious and funny was something he recalled. In honor of Harrison, the History Channel aired a special episode titled A Treasure Remembered. This episode showcased select highlights from Harrison's over 500 appearances on the show. It was fitting recognition of a man who had contributed to the success of the show. At first, his admirers got to witness a final performance of his most memorable lines and speeches. He became a hero because this demonstrated his intelligence and humor. Richard Harrison's passing in 2018 revealed long-simmering tensions in addition to the personal loss it caused his family. Although it appeared like the family business was thriving on television, there were actually problems behind the scenes that eventually led to claims, lawsuits, and nasty power struggles and money disputes. A dramatic turn occurred in February 2022 when Rick Harrison, Richard's son, was sued by Joanne Harrison, Richard's wife. According to her, in 2000 or 2001, while she was unconscious, Rick deceived her into relinquishing most of her ownership in the gold and silver pawn shop. According to Joanne, she was naive about the nature of her agreement at the time. It was only after a violent altercation with Rick that she learned what had happened. That was when it became too late. The most distressing part of the case was the evidence it provided. After Richard passed away, Joanne became the sole owner of the store since she received his 49% stake. However, she claimed that Rick withheld the financial records and ceased providing her with the monthly funds necessary for her living expenses. He started out by giving her $25,000 monthly. In 2020, he halted all payments after reducing it to $20,000. According to Joanne, Rick also hoarded over $500,000 in metal and cash before his death. Everything Rick said was false. His mother, he insisted, wasn't behaving independently, but rather under the influence of those who sought to exploit her. However, that was not the end of the court case. The following month, in March 2022, things escalated further as Joanne sought a temporary restraining order against Rick. She insisted he not relocate or conceal family assets while the case was ongoing.